This video is brought to you by my generous backers over on Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel and get cool perks like access to the Discord, seeing the videos a week before anyone else, or exclusive Patreon only gameplays, then feel free to check out my Patreon. The link's in the description below. Gargos, Vicious Watcher versus Ruric Thar, the Unbowed, Oloro, Ageless, Ascetic, and Alela, Artful, Provocateur. We are playing with 3 patrons again, in fact the same ones from the eedi-H game, assuming that you've seen that one already. We got another game going pretty much straight away. We need lands in this deck, as do most decks, so we'll mulligan that and get into nothing but lands, so we're just going to have to either keep our fingers crossed for stuff off the top, or we could just, that's a free mulligan in multiplayer, so I think I might go again actually. Oh, that's risky. If we can keep our Sol Ring and go into Kodama's Reach, then we're alright, so I'm actually going to, yeah, we'll keep that. If we draw into a land, we can actually play Kodama's Reach on turn 2, assuming we've got the Emerald Medallion out. Uncage the Menagerie gets us into, I mean it's pretty much card draw, isn't it? Let's get rid of Rishkar's expertise there, because with Uncage the Menagerie we could get into more ramp, and Oloro starting things as he means to go on, gaining a life at the beginning of each of his upkeeps. Alright, neither one of our opponents getting anything on turn 1. We will go for this Sol Ring into Emerald Medallion. And it's just a case of hoping that we manage to land our Kodama's Reach next turn. I mean, we could go in for the Dryad Arbor with Worldly Tutor, but it's not the most optimal play with a Worldly Tutor. I don't think anyone's going to point any removal at the Sol Ring anyway, although Ruric Thar might. Speaking of which, we have Valdriag running the Ruric Thar deck. Outlaw is on Oloro, and then Atlas Dragoon on the other Esper deck in Alela, Artful, Provocateur. And Alela just going for a tap land as well, and Oloro also tapping out, so yeah, just all getting out our early lands and keeping our hands full at the moment. So we're pretty much the only ones that are doing anything. Skyshroud Claim would have been good if we had another land, but we'll concentrate on... Oh, actually. Almost made a mistake there. That costs 1 less. So we can go like that into 2 untapped forests into Kodama's Reach. So there's our land troubles gone. Apologies to my opponent, I had a good start with eedi-H as well. But if we don't capitalise on this, then it just means that everyone's eyes are firmly fixed on us. It's not like we have a bunch of cards in hand. Maybe should have kept the Rishkar's expertise over the Uncage the Menagerie, but I wasn't too confident that we were going to get into a bunch of mana. Okay, and Alela just getting out another land and passing the turn, so they are on the slow control game by the looks of it, although Watery Grave comes in shot, so there we go, Oloro has something to do. Narset comes down here. Uncage the Menagerie isn't card draw, so we can still go for that. And Song of the Dryads can get rid of Narset as well. Now a Kodama's Reach from Ruric Thar, getting their ramp down before they go in for their commander, of course. And that's something we have to be conscious of. Ruric Thar is going to be really good against these control players, I imagine. I think he triggers off non-creatures. Yeah, non-creature spells, so maybe going for Uncage the Menagerie before anything else would be a good idea. Let's have a look and see what we can draw into with Worldly Tutor. And let's also see how much we can put into Uncage the Menagerie. We could put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into that. I think I'm okay just putting 3 into the Uncage the Menagerie. We've got a lot of 3 drops that I like. Why don't we just go for Genesis Hydra here? Yeah, we could get something good off the top, although there's Beast Whisperer for card draw. Yeah, I'm actually going to go for Beast Whisperer and hope that we can get rid of that Narset. Are we going to see Ruric Thar next turn is the question. Do we have time to go for Gargos? I think Song of the Dryads onto Ruric Thar would actually be better. So let's go for Gargos here. And then we'll just pass the turn like that, I think. Because I want to try and swing Gargos in at that Narset. And there is the Esper colours set up for Alela, followed by a Swiftfoot Boots. So if they can get a couple more mana, they can go Alela, and then a Swiftfoot Boots onto Alela. And Oloro already up to 46 life. Now then, there is, we obviously know about Narset. That is Stolen Goods. Target opponent exiles the top card until they exile and on land, and until the end of the turn you can cast it without paying the mana cost. So what did they get off of us there? I think it must have been, that's gone into our graveyard now, Hungering Hydra, which is of little to no use to them. Yeah, I'm assuming that it's that because it's gone into the bin. And we don't have anything in exile, so they must have not wanted to bother with that. Ronas's Monument. Oh, and of course it would have died anyway. So I think they did cast that, but it died because it was a 0/0. They couldn't put anything into X. As for Ruric Thar, Pristine Talisman and Ronas's Monument has come down. Now then, this is when we deal damage to a player. So we're going to have to just aim ourselves at Narset. So let's see if we can have our Gargos stick here. And down goes Narset. Now I don't know if this is Super Friends from our opponent. Let's go for Uncage the Menagerie for 3. Which only costs us 4 mana thanks to the Emerald Medallion. And then we've got, I think Lifeblood Hydra is good. Selvala. So that's a couple of card draws, and then Pure Imaginative Rascal as well. So for 4 mana we get 3 decent creatures into our hand. Then we'll just drop ourselves a Selvala so that can tap for mana next turn. We don't have any haste yet, unfortunately. Can't exactly complain about not having haste with the fast start that we've gotten off to. Now this is Hydra's cost 4 less, so this is going to cost, it'll put 5 into X. So we can play it for 3 mana, and it'll be a 5/5, a 10/10 if Pier is in play. And there is Alela, not going in for the Swiftfoot Boots because they don't have the mana for that. So a risky play by our opponent. We'll have to see if it pays off for them. Might actually tempt me to go for Hunter's Insight onto our commander. Want to draw a bunch of cards, but it will also fight whatever we like when we target with that. And then that's always worrying. Oloro holding up a bunch of mana, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, not quite Cyclonic Rift, and I think it's too early for a Rift anyway. Now Ruric Thar going in for Sol Ring into Well of Lost Dreams. That's an unusual one. So they've obviously got some life gain in this deck, one of which is from the Pristine Talisman. So Pristine Talisman in that case sort of reads tap, add a life and a mana, put said mana straight into Well of Lost Dreams to draw a card. So that's pretty much tap, gain a life and draw a card at that point. Now then, I'm going to swing in at Ruric Thar here, and I'm going to hope that the Oloro player doesn't interfere with that. They should see where we swing in before they do anything. Let's put some commander damage on Ruric Thar. We'll try to. Nothing's happening. Let's go Hunter's Insight onto that. Oh, we're actually going to waste mana there. Let's just do it like that. Gargos can fight the Alela. Oh, she has Death Touch. Oh, I forgot all about the Death Touch. Oh, you fool. Oh, well, we got rid of our opponent's commander at least. Let's... yeah, that was a bad mistake on my part. Let's go for the Forest. We'll go in for the Beast Whisperer. And we do control a creature with the biggest power. So that should have drawn us a card, shouldn't it? Oh, greater than each other creature's power. Okay, so that's very specific. Let's just do some setting up then. We will draw a card from Beast Whisperer for sure. And now we've got haste on Swiftfoot Boots. So it's just a case of hoping that there's no board wipe. That was a big error on my part. We'll target ourselves and not bother looking for Toothy. Not likely to find Toothy in a mono green deck. It's just fingers crossed that there's no board wipe at this point. Now a Vidalcan Orrery from my opponent. Don't know if they had that last turn or if they've just drawn into it. I think I would have gone for that on my turn 4 if they had it in hand. Obviously we don't know if they've just drawn into that or not. But then they could have gone for Alela at the end of our turn. Then put the Swiftfoot Boots on it during theirs. Oh, an Ether Flux Reservoir. Don't want to see that. 5 cards still in Oloro's hand, and they are up to 50 life already with a Karlov. Luckily, they can't use that ability just yet, and they wouldn't have the mana for it anyway. Karlov's going to get really big, and it's going to keep us off of card draw for Selvala. I think we have to go in for our Gargos next turn if we can afford it. That should be 5, 6, 7 mana. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just about enough. Now let's see what Ruric Thar wants to do. Down comes the Ruric Thar. So fingers crossed our Esper opponents don't have a lot of non-creature spells to cast, although I bet they do. Oloro might be able to deal with Ruric Thar okay, because there's obviously a lot of life gain over that way. But Ruric Thar now has the biggest power on the board, so they are going to be able to draw there. Going up to 4 cards in hand. And then deciding to just hold on to the cards that are in hand and pass over to us. We've got Boseiju, which could be good against 2 control players, or 2 players that are likely to have some counter magic. I think we just go in for the Gargos again and hope that it doesn't get countered. We'll draw from the Beast Whisperer. Yeah, we've certainly been set back a turn by my blunder just there, so that really doesn't feel good. We draw into Hooded Hydra, and we draw from the Beast Whisperer as well. I'm hoping that we get into... yeah, we definitely have Gargos enter, which means that Selvala will draw us a card. We can play out the tap land. Selvala will tap for 8 green mana now. So as far as I can tell, we just go Boseiju. Then we go Lifeblood Hydra. No, we'll go Hooded Hydra first and see how much mana we've got left after that. Yeah, it's going to be... yeah, X is 6 at the moment. So we'll just go like that on the Hooded Hydra. Draw another card. Now, luckily for our opponents, we don't have Doubling Season. We do have Pier, though. That comes in as a 7/7 thanks to Pier. Then we'll go Lifeblood Hydra. And we'll just pay the 3 for that because we've drawn into Lightning Greaves now. Alright, get into another land, that's good. We were struggling on drawing into lands for a few draws there. Lifeblood Hydra and the Hooded Hydra are both good Wrath Protection. Gonna take 6 to the Ruric Thar here. Due to the Lightning Greaves, it is worth getting that out. And then I'm just gonna hope that Karlov doesn't gain enough life to... it's 6 counters, yeah. That's a pain. Oh well, I'm just going to put it on Gargos. It has Vigilance, so I don't mind swinging in with that. And then we'll get the Swiftfoot Boots onto Gargos next turn. It means taking off the Lightning Greaves, which is risky, but we'll get to fight something if our opponents target that anyway. we'll go in at Ruric Thar again because I've got a lot of non-creatures in hand. And they decide to take it, and they do take the damage this time. Because we're not going to go fighting any death touches. And then we'll just leave it at that and await the imminent board wipe. Now a Smothering Tithe coming down for Alela. I was just reading the chat there, and it seems as though Alela is worried about Boseiju. So, yeah, I think they are wanting to counter our instants and sorceries. We don't actually have too many instants and sorceries in the deck, but I think that's really left over there from when I had Genesis Wave in the deck. But we can Genesis Wave into Expel Hydras like this. And I didn't mind because I had the Mimic that gives Hydras or any tribe you like plus counters. So that was the plan with that. But it's not in there anymore, so I might have to pull Boseiju out. Karlov already has 2 plus counters on. This is remove 6 and pay Orzhov to exile a target creature. Really, really hopeful that my opponent is not going to go casting a bunch of spells, because if they do, they've got the mana to activate Karlov. Now, I don't know if they want rid of Ruric Thar or if they want rid of these. These are only of risk if either we get into a sack outlet or someone wipes the board. So they might feel as though they've got time against our Hydras, but Ruric Thar is really, really hurtful towards their deck, I assume. And they're tapping down white mana anyway, so that takes them off of Karlov. Alright, it is a Swords to Plowshares, and where is that aimed? Okay, Swords to Plowshares is going at the Lifeblood Hydra, which means I'm going to fight Karlov. I'm actually going to leave Ruric Thar in play. I'm more worried about our stuff being exiled, like Hooded Hydra and the Lifeblood Hydra. And it's Gargos that fights, isn't it? Yes, so Gargos has 4 points of damage on it there. The Lifeblood Hydra goes into exile. We'll gain 6 life at least, but I'd rather have kept the Lifeblood Hydra in play for the card draw. Now, do I have to fight with Gargos? Fights up to 1 target creature you don't control, so we don't have to fight. And I think I'm going to keep Ruric Thar in play. We can block Ruric quite easily. And they went for the card draw there, which will activate Smothering Tithe for another token, but looks like Ruric Thar is paying into that, so no tokens from the Smothering Tithe just yet. Yeah, they just tapped down the Pristine Talisman for a life and a mana, triggering the Well of Lost Dreams, and they can put that mana into there for card draw. So Ruric Thar is going to be up to 6 cards in hand here. But during the upkeep, surprisingly, I think they're doing that during their upkeep, okay. I don't think they know what's on top of their library, so I would have thought they'd want to draw into something first before they activate that. Maybe I've missed something, and they do know what was on top of the library. Anyway, grabbing a couple of forests, they draw on their draw step, and Smothering Tithe activates again. They decide to let it go this time, so they've obviously got something else they want to cast. And now Ruric Thar is going to swing in at the Oloro player. Probably a good idea to get commander damage on there, because Oloro is going to be gaining life all over the place. Down to 43 still, up on the beginning life total, but now with 6 points of Ruric Thar damage. Smothering Tithe, I don't think we're going to pay for. So Alela can have a little bit more mana. They probably just go in for their Alela with a Swiftfoot Boots. Okay, I would like a Primeval Bounty, I think. We are going to take life again from Ruric Thar. But we gain life from landfall with this. I think it's life we get from lands. Yeah, 3 life. So we go Windswept Heath, and we pretty much immediately gain back the life that we lose. I think we end up down a little bit. I play the fetches because sometimes you want to shuffle the top card of your library with a Sylvan Library or a Miri's Guile, something like that. Sometimes you've got cards on top that you don't want to see. And it's easy enough to run fetches in all of your decks online because you only need one copy of each, for EDH at least. Now we'll go Swiftfoot Boots, and we'll take 6 from the Ruric Thar, but we'll also get to put a bunch of plus counters onto the Hooded Hydra. Then we'll try and put Hexproof on Hooded Hydra. That is an 11/11. Alright, now, who was it that wanted to deal with our Boseiju? Yeah, it was the Alela player, so I'm going to try and hurt them this turn. And I'm going to try and let Ruric Thar deal with Oloro. So let's go in like that. And that is 19 points of damage on Alela. So Alela going down to 17. And then we'll pass it over to Alela and see what she's got. She's going to have 5 cards in hand and plenty of mana thanks to the Smothering Tithe cracking a fetch at the end of the turn. And we're just not drawing into enough creatures currently. We want creatures to cheat in almost with Gargos, but they'll also trigger, probably not Selvala at this point, but they will certainly trigger the Beast Whisperer. Some kind of card draw would actually be even better if we can draw cards equal to the power of a creature. And thanks to Boseiju, it wouldn't be counterable. Need to top deck into something like that though. Alright, Wasteland going on to the Boseiju, so much for our uncounterable instants and sorceries. They're obviously desperate to be countering our stuff. Like I say, I can't feel too bad about it because we actually need to draw into the instants and sorceries first. And there is Alela again, most likely going for the equip with the boots and then holding up a single point of mana. Must remember this time that Alela has Death Touch. So don't forget that, like I did. They are going for the equip there. They pass through to the second main, so I thought they were going to pass with 2 open blue mana there. I imagine they went for Alela on their turn because they wanted the boots on. If they'd gone for it at the end of our turn, Alela would have been open to removal still. And obviously not wanting Oloro to untap that piece of white mana that they've got before Alela can come down with Hexproof. Alela getting another treasure token. Oh, Merciless Eviction. Exile all creatures. Really being hurt by the exile here. Yeah, our stuff isn't dying, so there's nothing we could have done about that in green, I don't think, even if we had Heroic Intervention or something like that. And the fact that Oloro is playing board wipes, board wipes like Merciless Eviction and things like Narset, it does point me in the direction of Super Friends. Although Aetherflux Reservoir, yeah, maybe they've just got a few. Maybe it's just Esper, pain in the neck, good stuff. And at the end of Oloro's turn, going for more card draw, Ruric Thar is now up to 7 cards in hand and is going to pay for that tithe. Now we have been ground to a complete halt. Our commander is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, I think. 7, 8, 9, and then equip the boots and carry on going in at... I mean, if Oloro's just going to keep wiping the board, I think we have to go in at them. Going for more card draw on the Well of Lost Dreams. Or are they just paying for something? Maybe they haven't put the mana into the Well of Lost Dreams there. Okay, that's a Zendikar Resurgent. They are still at 7 cards in hand. And that is a heap of mana that Ruric Thar is going to have. I bet they almost didn't mind that Ruric Thar went down if they had that in their hand. Now 6 open mana for our opponent. I think it's green creature spells. Yeah, green creature spells cost 1 less. Now a Xenagos the Reveler. Most likely just throwing out a Satyr. And after that going for Courser of Kruphix, which will draw them a card. We've got Zendikar Resurgent in this deck. That's the type of thing I'd like to see. Smothering Tithe, they might pay for. They've got 2 open mana. And looks like they are paying for it. Ronas's Monument gives a creature +2/+2 and trample. Then down comes the Courser of Kruphix, animating Nylea. So they've got 10 points of damage to throw in someone's face here. See if they split it up or not. They've also got a forest on top of their library thanks to the Courser of Crufix that is revealed. And they're just deciding where they want to throw things. We are getting a 4/4 Satyr, and Oloro is getting the 6/6 Nylea. So we'll just take our hit for 4. Alright, there goes the Smothering Tithe again. I think we're going to have to tap out for our commander here, depending on what we draw into. So we'll just allow Smothering Tithe again. And yeah, it's just a forest, so let's gain some more life with Prismatic Vista. We'll end up with a beast when we cast our commander at least. So gaining 5 life from the Primeval Bounty. Had to put 1 into the Prismatic Vista. Let's go for our commander for what should be a second time, but is actually a third. And we make a beast with the Primeval Bounty. Then we're just going for Swiftfoot Boots onto Gargos. I think we have to continue to... yeah, another point of damage onto Alela. Yeah, I think I'm going in at Alela because if we hit them again next turn, then they're out of the game. And we really can't have Esper players getting into the end game. So as much as I'd love to get rid of Oloro over Alela, I'll get rid of Alela faster than I will Oloro. And I'm hoping that Ruric Thar has his eyes locked on Oloro. Yeah, just keeping my fingers crossed for a big card draw spell at this point, but Oloro, noticeably, has held up 2 blue mana, so there's no guarantee that we'd be able to resolve it anyway. Yeah, going for Alela again, I think they have to do that pretty much. Not only do you get value off of Alela if you can stick her, but she's also a Death Toucher. So if they assume that we're going to keep swinging in at them, which I intend to next turn, then having a Death Toucher in the way kind of puts a dampener on that. We only need to deal 5 points of damage to them. If we get Trample, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... yeah, I think we can still get lethal on them if we get into Trample, but we'll trade commanders, so might be worth leaving Alela in play for a little bit longer. If Ruric Thar sticks, then they're going to really struggle playing their deck. They'll only get 1 non-creature spell, and that'll knock them down to 2 life. And that might just switch them off entirely. Now an Auriok Champion for even more life. Oloro, again, leaving up a bunch of mana. We can hope that they've got a fistful of lands, but I don't know. That looks like Rift mana. Now, if they've got Rift mana and Ruric goes in at them, are they going to Rift then, or are they going to Rift when we go in at them? They obviously don't know how everyone's going to attack. They've got a Primordial Sage on top now as well, by the way. The Ruric Thar player. Now going for Ruric, that will draw them a card, and Ronus's Monument gives something +2/+2 and Trample. But their stuff has Trample anyway, thanks to Nylea. And okay, Alela making use of the Vidarkan Orrery, going for Rings of Brighthearth before the Ruric Thar comes down. And a Fairy enters, gaining Oloro a life off of Auriok Champion as well. And then Ruric Thar drew a card from the Zendikar Resurgent, triggering the Smothering Tithe. They've got a heap of mana, so they may well pay for that. Yeah, no treasure tokens over here, so I think they did pay for it. And then Ruric enters, gaining Oloro another life. They are almost at their starting life total again. I don't think Ruric has a means of giving haste at the moment. Got another land on top. They obviously drew into the Primordial Sage. A Terastodon. Draw into the mountain. A forest is on top. Gain Oloro a life again, and Terastodon can blow up, I think it's 3 non-creatures. Yeah, 3 non-creature permanents. So we might end up with an elephant token here. Yeah, Primeval Bounty goes down. I assume they'd do that. Going after the Aetherflux Reservoir, which is really good. And then I can't see the third target. Okay, that's all That's all they went for. They can go for 3 with that. Yeah, they didn't target any of their own stuff. I might have gone for Smothering Tithe or the Rings of Brighthearth, but oh well, our opponent's obviously got his reasons. Now what have we got? That is Stampeding Wild Beasts. Oh, Beasts is spelt with a double E, that's weird. Okay, that is a 5/4 trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, return a green creature you control to its owner's hand. I see, so they want to make use of ETBs like Terastodon. So some of that Esper Exile would come in handy here, but Ruric Thar is in play, so I did fancy our odds in a 1v1 situation against Ruric Thar, but I think I've changed my mind pretty quickly there. Now showing us that they've got Nissa's Revelation on top. Scry 5, reveal the top card. If it's a creature, draw equal to the power and gain life equal to the toughness. So I think their strategy here, I don't know how common a strategy it is with Ruric Thar. It's clearly to gain life enough to one-draw cards off of things like this, but also so that they can actually cast non-creatures whilst they've got their Ruric Thar in play, which is an interesting tactic. Gruul not exactly known for gaining life, but well, green can gain life easily enough. So it doesn't slow them down any when their own commander's in play. It's an interesting tactic from our opponent. Now let's see where all this stuff is swinging in. They've got a Satyr, the Courser of Kruphix and Nylea. I don't know if they've activated the mana ability on this yet. It has, yeah, it's got a +1, so maybe. We've got Nylea coming in at us. There is Courser of Kruphix and the Satyr going in at Oloro. Yeah, so our opponent focusing in on Oloro. That has Trample. Yeah, it's been given Trample by Ronus's Monument, I imagine. I am just going to take a hit for 8 here. Okay, the Elephant going in front of Courser of Kruphix. Auriok Champion going in on the red creature. This has pro-red, I think. Yeah, protection from red. That has Trample, so 3 damage will still go through. They might as well save themselves a point of damage, though. This also has Trample. But Oloro only going down to 39. Now a Smothering Tithe at the beginning of our turn. We get into Primordial Hydra. So we could pay for Smothering Tithe. It's going to get a bunch of plus counters on it and have Trample. Let's pay into that. Go for a Forest. And then do we want to play a team game and go for Song of the Dryads onto the Ruric Thar? Let's see how many counters we can get on there. That is currently 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we can still go Song of the Dryads if we decide to. So let's just try and give Primordial Hydra Trample straight away. We'll be able to put Greaves onto that as well. Gain Oloro another point of life. They are straight back up to their starting life total. Yeah, we're just telling the Oloro player. These two have said that it would help getting rid of Ruric. I don't like helping the Oloro player that we are struggling to deal with as is, but Ruric is going off here, so we need to put him under control a little bit. Take another 6 life and go down to 20, and we are officially in top deck mode. This assumes that this gets through, of course. They could give Ruric Hexproof. Heroic Intervention or Vines of Vastwood, something like that. Looks like they're trying to get into it. They'll draw a card with Well of Lost Dreams. That's been a good combination of cards for them. They reveal a Forest. Now we obviously know what they drew into. They get into a Forest off the top. I don't think they can play any cards off the top, so yeah, just doing that for the sake of doing it, I think. Now then, we've allowed the Esper players back into the game as far as I can tell. Now this is equal to power. Oh, it's the number of creatures you control. Well, that's still quite a bit, so I don't mind losing the Primordial Hydra if they want to block. I think they're going to bounce Terastodon, so I think they'll just take this. And then I'm going to send Gargos in at the Oloro player as well, because we need to try and keep their life total down a little bit. If Alela can start spitting out fairies all over the place, then they're going to be gaining life with their Auriok champion. Okay, surprisingly, blocking with the Terastodon. I am glad to see that, because I really don't want our opponent casting Terastodon every turn. So they get to keep. Well, they might be able to buff their Terastodon here and kill off our Hydra. Oh, of course, they can buff it with the Nylea. I forgot all about that. +2/+2. So we lose our Hydra for nothing. I always forget about Nyleas. I've done that before in a game. I think it actually might have cost me the game. Yeah, I can't remember, but I've actually forgotten about that activated ability before. Makes our opponent tap out though, so they might not be able to do as much as they would like. I don't know how much they can do on everyone else's turn, but still. Alela has a good chance of flying over and dealing with the Xenagos. And Oloro took the 8 points of commander damage in that combat, by the way. I'm still waiting on this Cyclonic Rift. I think if Oloro goes Cyclonic Rift, it will remove our Song of the Dryads and leave the Ruric Thar in play because it's a land. I think that's how that works. Anyway, the Alela player going in for Etchings of the Chosen. And they get to choose fairies there, I imagine. +1/+1 to fairies. 1 and sack a fairy. Target creature you control gains indestructible. That's a good one for Alela. Yeah, I don't have that in my deck. That's a good inclusion. Okay, Alela deciding to swing in and take out the Xenagos. Yeah, I probably should have left back my Hydra as a blocker and gone in for... yeah, probably just swinging in like I did with the Vigilance Commander at Oloro. Held back the 10/10. Because that would become a 20/20. Yeah, definitely making some mistakes in this one. But I don't feel too bad about it because we're in top deck mode anyway and we're not drawing into our card draw, so I don't think we've changed the course of the game any. Xenagos goes down to Alela, and there is still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 mana held up. They can play at instant speed as well. 3 cards in hand, deciding to do something on this turn apparently. It is Ifara, and they're going to have had a fairy enter during their last turn. So they're going to draw a card during Oloro's turn. And they're gaining Oloro more life as well. Alright, so Ifara triggers thanks to the fairy, like I said, at the beginning of Oloro's turn, and continuing to progress up to their starting life total. Seems to be a recurring theme. Valdriag seems to be keen on getting rid of us. I think they ought to be keen on getting rid of Oloro. I know I would say that, but Oloro still has cards in hand. We're having the greatest difficulty getting their life total down anywhere below 30. I think piling in on Oloro would be a good idea. Noteworthy that they didn't go in for a Cyclonic Rift, by the way. They had the mana up for it, but maybe they don't have it in hand after all. Now a Clever Impersonator. What does that go for? Maybe a Terastodon? Nope, they just go for their own mana doubler, so a Zendikar Resurgent. Now it's Path to Exile on Terastodon. I don't mind that one bit. Now they're not going to be able to bounce it and replay it next turn. Down goes Terastodon. They've still got their mana doubler, so that's even more mana for them next turn because they get a land into play. Gain a life from Courser of Kruphix. And now they've got Stampeding Cerro on top. That is trample at the beginning of your upkeep. Return a green creature. Yeah, so that's the same. They just want to play creatures, bounce them, replay them. Some kind of pseudo card advantage. And they did draw into that from the Well of Lost Dreams. Alright, then going for a Wrath of God. So they've still got a bounce creature in hand, but they're going to have to replay it all. Getting rid of this thing is the key, I think. And our commander costs 11 now, I think, which we've just about got enough mana for. I won't be too upset to see the back of this thing either, because that's gaining our opponent a lot of life. Okay, so Alela has decided to respond to that and give their commander Indestructible. So already making use of the etchings of the Chosen. And now if they go for a copy of that with Rings of Bright Hearth, I don't know if they can they change? You may choose new targets for the copy. Okay, yeah, so it looks like they are going for that, so they'll just get to make an Indestructible Fairy. So they get to keep their commander and a fairy. Yeah, I think I'll have to put this in my deck. That's a good include. One of the most difficult things with Alela is keeping Alela in play. She eats removal like nothing else. But the board is successfully wiped, and now Oloro is down to 5 cards in hand. I'll bet you Ruric Thar can come back from this. Luckily Ruric Thar is still a forest over there, but has 8 cards in hand, about to go up to 9 cards. And they'll continue to draw cards throughout their turn because Zendikar Resurgent is still with us. Okay, whilst I've just been having a bit of fun with my opponent, the Ruric Thar player is doing, I forgot about the Primordial Sage that's in their hand, so even more card draw for them. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may draw. They drew off of the Zendikar Resurgent with that as well. And I think that animates the Nylea again. This is 5 devotion it needs, isn't it? Yeah, the mono-coloured ones are 5. So out comes Nylea again. And they've got a bunch of double mana. I think they can take a player out here. Can she give herself the plus? Target creature gets +2/+2, yeah. So they could buff Nylea up a huge amount. I haven't worked out how much. Alright, now it's a Sifter Worm. When it enters the battlefield, scry 3. Reveal the top card. Gain life equal to the CMC. Yeah, this is a very interesting Ruric Thar list that our opponent's running. Going for the life gain to not only help keep them in the game, but, like I said before, it will actually draw them cards with a Well of Lost Dreams, as well as allow them to cast non-creatures when Ruric Thar's in play. Ronas's Monument gives the god +2/+2 and trample. Primordial Sage draws them a card as well. And Well of Lost Dreams triggers from the life gain to this thing. They have revealed... It's just a Wood Elf, so they clearly didn't have anything decent on top. Not that Wood Elves isn't decent, but it's not as good as it could be this late in the game, although it is 3 mana, ramp, and draw 2 cards with this board state, so... Oh, it's actually 2 mana, isn't it? Plus it gives something +2/+2 and trample, so that's a hell of a lot of advantage that you can get just for a Wood Elves. They've gone up to 11 cards, dumping a bunch of mana into the Well of Lost Dreams. Don't forget that this thing has gained them life. Followed by a Wormcoil Engine for more card draw. And another buff, probably onto Nylea. And there is the Wood Elves, so we can get rid of that from the reveal zone. They've still got 10 cards in hand. Dare say they're going to have more than that by the time the turn's over. And whilst all this card draw's going, Alela is ramping like crazy. They will have 4 cards on their next turn. And they've managed to keep their commander in play as well. So they might have an answer. Oh, a Chroma's Memorial. That is really good. So everything gets haste and some form of evasion now. It's protection from black and red. Trample, Vigilance, Haste, First Strike, and Flying. So they can probably take at least one player out here. Then going for the Stampeding Cerro as well. Probably just bouncing the Sifter Worm or the Wood Elves with that. They've both got 2 useful enter the battlefield abilities, although this gains them a lot more value. But it's also way more expensive. So now it's a case of seeing where they want to swing in. There's 20 damage on the Nylea and the Wormcoil Engine alone, which can take us out. Swinging in at Nylea with the Indestructible. And the Primordial Sage. Wormcoil going in at Oloro. The 7/7 goes in at Oloro. We get a Wood Elves, lucky us. And then the 5/4 goes in at Oloro as well, yeah. I was hoping that our opponent, they could have taken us out there. I was hoping that they'd go after Oloro because obviously I want to stay in the game, so from a selfish perspective, that's what I wanted. But if by some miracle we all manage to survive this, then I think we need to get Oloro out of the game because they're sticking around for too long. And I think we can hopefully rely on Alela and their removal to deal with Ruric Thar. Alright, Alela going for something in response. There's a Skull Clamp. So that puts 2 points of toughness on the battlefield. So they could just sacrifice a creature to make one indestructible, but there's a lot of trample. That's the only problem. This Ronas's Monument has done a lot of work for our opponent. And Nylea gives everything trample anyway. 2 cards left in hand. Let's see what else they've got. They've got a lot of mana from the treasures, thankfully. Okay, Leyline of Anticipation. Yeah, they're just looking to make even more creatures. So that's Flash again. They've already got Flash from the Vedalken Orrery, so you wouldn't necessarily want both of those in play at once, just in case someone goes for a mass board wipe. But they're obviously desperate for the creatures. The Nylea being blocked, and the Primordial Sage being blocked with 2 creatures. That will take out the Primordial Sage. And they're just stopping 2 points of damage coming through with Nylea. Does this have trample? Oh yeah, everything has trample. Oh, they've got this to block with now as well. I forgot about that. But they decided not to block with it. They can block with this, can't they? Well, we'll find out when the damage is dealt. Yeah, they go down to 1. They could have saved themselves some life there with Ifara. I think they maybe didn't realise that Ifara was active, thanks to this thing coming in. Now Oloro's down to a more reasonable life total. But it is arch enemy, 3 against 1. Luckily for Ruric Thar, they're the only one with card draw. Even if we draw into our card draw now, we have to wait a turn to actually bother casting it. Ifara triggers for the Alela because they had the fairies enter. And we just get into a land, so I can't feel too badly about this game. The only thing that could have turned the tide for us, I think, was when I goofed with the Hunter's Insight, and that was a massive error. I shouldn't have fought the Alela. I should have just gotten the card draw. We would have drawn 8 cards there. So I'll try and draw 8 cards at the end of the game. And we'll see how much deeper we would have gotten and how relevant it might have been. Okay, that's 11. So we can still go for Swiftfoot Boots. Just put the Swiftfoot Boots on there. And then we'll pass over. So yeah, like I said, I've obviously made a few errors here, but I think, yeah, the only thing that really would have made any difference is that Hunter's Insight. I think everything else has just been down to bad top decks. Now don't get me wrong, it might end up when we look at those 8 cards that not going for this was a huge error that actually could have turned the course of the game around, but it may also not matter a jot. We'll find out soon enough. 3 cards in Alela's hand. They can't even go for Skull Clamp thanks to the buff on fairies. I think I might have actually looked at this. Yeah, I think, I might not have put Anthems in the deck just because it switches off Skull Clamp. I think the only Anthems I've got buff power. And I think they keep the toughness at 1 for fairies, just because I'm worried about switching Skull Clamp off in situations like this. I think that's how I built it anyway. You can obviously go and have a look at my deck list if you're interested. I played a Wayfarer's Bauble and deciding to crack that and copy the ability. They only get 1 fairy off of casting the Wayfarer's Bauble though. Yeah, coming in at us. They might be wiping the board perhaps. We've got 2 cards left in hand. All of these things have flying. And they've got protection from black, so there's no point in Alela swinging in over here. Well, if they've got a board wipe, they're not casting it now. They can do it at instant speed thanks to their flash enablers. Let's see if Oloro can top deck into something great. They could cast their commander and draw a card. That would obviously set them down 6 mana, but they've got mana doublers. They just drop a land, so that's one of the cards that was in their hand. Yeah, they can afford to get down their commander and still have a big chunk left over. And there we go, there's Oloro, drawing them a card. And that looks like board wipe mana. No, it's not. It's an Anguished Unmaking going on to the Akroma's Memorial, so knocking all the keywords off of our opponent's creatures. I don't think that's going to be good enough, unfortunately. Could really have done with the Merciless Eviction at this point, but obviously our opponent didn't know that Ruric Thar was going to go crazy. Now, Stampeding Sero is going to be able to bounce something. Do they go for this or the Wood Elves? Let's see. They decide to go for the Wood Elves because it's cheaper. They've got 9 cards in hand. Deciding to pay into the Smothering Tithe as well. Now, can Ruric Thar take us all out this turn? In comes the Wood Elves again for more +2/+2 and trample and more card draw. And now it is Verdant Sun's Avatar because our opponent doesn't have enough life. When it enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to the creature's toughness, or it's when this or another creature enters. Yeah. They don't have the haste anymore, but they want to cast a load of creatures so that they can use Ronas's Monument to put pluses on everything. And yet again, another interaction with life gain. That Well of Lost Dreams. We haven't seen many board wipes for... In fact, we haven't seen any board wipes for artifacts and enchantments this game, which has kept Ruric Thar in the game, really. Now it's a Wall of Blossoms for even more triggers. That will draw them a card on entry. It's actually a good one to bounce with the... where is it? Is it this? Yeah, good one to bounce with the Stampeding Sero. And that's 4 life gained from that entering. I don't think they put any life into the Well of Lost Dreams, though. No, I don't think they've put any mana into the Well of Lost Dreams. They just tap that down, and they're still at 10 cards. Now casting a Sword of Light and Shadow. So that's protection from Oloro. Yeah, I think they're going to be able to one-shot Oloro. If this thing can be plussed another 1 point of damage. Oh, but they're actually putting it onto the Wormcoil Engine, fair enough. Yeah, if they'd gone for it on this, that would have been 14, and then just 1 more point of damage would have gotten rid of Oloro, but we obviously don't know what's in the hand here. I don't think they can do anything for 3 mana. Aetherize is 3, and there's Aether Spouts is 5, or maybe it's the other way around. Now a Spike Feeder, that's usually a combo piece. Plus counters, removed, gain a life. Yeah, so even blowing up the Well of Lost Dreams would have drastically turned the tides here, because they've got lots and lots of card draw from the Well of Lost Dreams thanks to all of the life gain they've got. They won't have many effects that are like Well of Lost Dreams, because there aren't many effects like that exist. Okay, eventually going through to combat. I'm sure they can take out at least 1 player. Which player do they want to take out is the thing. Nylea is a 14/14 going in at Alela. The 4/5 Primordial Sage in at Oloro. The 7/7 going in at Alela. And the 6/6, now an 8/8 Wormcoil Engine going in at Oloro as well. So I think Oloro might be able to stay in it. I'm not sure. Didn't work that out. I'll just be lazy and let Magic Online work it out for me. Now don't forget Alela can do something at instant speed, assuming that it's not just lands in their hand. They are double blocking the 7/7. And then Nylea just goes through and takes them out. Doesn't look like they're casting anything, they've just blocked and passed the turn. Then Oloro is blocking this thing. And yeah, Oloro's probably going down here because Nylea will buff a creature. Yeah, they're just buffing a bunch of creatures here to ensure that they take out both of these players, I assume, is what they're aiming for. Alright, so now here's an 11/11, an 8/9, 14/14, Wormcoil is a 10/10, they've all got trample. Oh, and the game's crashed, how annoying. Valdriag was not doing anything for a little while there. We were waiting for them to respond, but clearly it wasn't Valdriag's fault that they weren't passing priority. It was down to the fact that the client was going to crash. First time this has ever happened to me in a game of multiplayer. I know PJ from Commander Replay has this happen sometimes, but I don't think we were top decking into anything great anyway. even if we'd gotten into a big card draw spell, we could have drawn 8 cards based on our commander's power. But we don't have all his dust and Oblivion Stone and things like that in the deck. This is just more of a fun Hydra tribal commander. So I think it's safe to say that Ruric Thar convincingly won that one. I really don't see what I could have top decked into, and I think these two players were going down, so yeah, happy to give the win to Ruric Thar there, and apologies that we didn't actually get to see it come to fruition, but I imagine we would have just drawn into a land or some other card that we didn't need, and then pass it straight over to Ruric Thar. They swing in for lethal, and that's that. Huge thank you again to the patrons for playing it out. Ruric took quite a long time to get everything going there because, well, basically he just had a lot of things to cast, had a lot of triggers on the stack. It's just exactly the same thing that happened to me during the Atali game that we last played. So huge props to all 3 of my patrons. Very well played by Valdrieg. Good game to everyone, and hopefully all of you enjoyed it. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.